Topic 7. The marginal revolution. Few major tenets of the marginalist school are as follow. First, focus on the margin. This marginalist school focus its attention on a point of change where decisions are made or on margin. I mean, it's not on the overall or aggregate, but they are more focused on the changes. Rational economic behavior. Assume that people act rationally in balancing pleasures and pain, in measuring marginal utilities of the different goods, and in balancing present against future. The approach employed by the marginalists has its root to the work of Jeremy Bertrand, especially referring to the pleasure and pain, in that they assume dominant drive of human action is to seek utility and avoid disutility. Another major tenet will be microeconomic emphasis. Okay? The individual person and firm take center stage to individual decision-making market condition for single type good, output, and specific firm. This school of thought also used the abstract deductive method. So the marginalists reject the historical method in favor of the analytical abstract approach pioneered by Ricardo and other classics school of thought members. Another major tenet will be the pure competition emphasis. So marginalists normally based on the analysis on the assumption of pure competition. Then it's a demand-oriented price theory. For the early marginalists, demand become the primary focus in the price determination. And classic economics emphasize cost production as significant determinant of the exchange value. The earliest marginalists swung to the opposite extreme where emphasize demand to the virtual exclusion of the supply. Another major tendency will be emphasis on subjective utility. Demand depends on marginal utility, which is a subjective psychological phenomenon. Cost of production includes sacrifice and extremeness of working, managing a business, and saving money to form a capital fund. I mean, every demand will be depends on individual psychology, and they may be subjective and different. Another few major tenets will be equilibrium approach. Marginalists believe that economic forces generally tend towards equilibrium, merger of land and with capital goods. So the marginalists lump land and capital resources together in their analysis and spoke of interest rent profit as being the return to property resources. Minimal government involvement, same like the classic school. So the marginalists continue the classic school defense of minimum government involvement in the economy as the most desirable policy. Among the famous thinker of the marginalist school of thought, especially the later version, will be Jevons. He was born in Liverpool, England, and has published several books on logic and become a professor of logic, political economy, and philosophy. Jevons was famous as a historian of science, and he made outstanding contribution to the development of index number. However, Jevons was an extremely introvert, and therefore he did not have great influence on his immediate peers and students. Right? One of his major contributions is the value theory, analyzed from the perspective of marginal utility. Value theory, referring to the water-diamond paradox debate, Ricardo claimed that pearls have value because people need to die for them. However, Jevons claimed that pearls have value because buyers get utility from them, and that people die for pearl because pearl have such value. So in this case, you see the rational is reverse. Right? Ricardo claimed that pearl have value, therefore people die for them. But Jevons claimed that people die for pearl because pearl have value. Right? Yet the specific level of utility associated with the pearl depends on the number of pearl people presently possesses. In his theory of political economy, Jevons states that value depends entirely upon utility. Labor can only determine value indirectly by varying the degree of utility of the commodity through an increase or limitation of supply. To explain the one value theory, we must therefore begin with his theory of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Utility is a subjective satisfaction. In this case, we assume is equivalent to pleasure and cannot be measured directly but can be estimated only by observing human behavior or preference. Individual can compare utilities or successive unit of a single goods and compare the marginal utility of several goods. Let's say as more of a good, let's say X is consumed, more X is consumed, 1X, 2X, 3X, 4X, 5X, 6X. Total utility increases at a diminishing rate. Each successive unit of X adds less to total utility than did the previous unit. And this is called diminishing marginal utility. I mean, from the first X to the second X, you add 1X, you may get, for example, 10 utility, but from the second, you add another one to the third, you may get 8. And the third to the fourth, you may get 6. And so it's a diminishing marginal utility. So they won't call it as MU, or the short form marginal utility, as a final degree of utility. Final degree of utility, final here, because he usually refer that marginal utility is the one that is the most important. That is the final individual decision based on it. So that's why it's like the one claim define marginal utility also as final degree of utility. Graphically, total utility curve may increase with more good of X, but notice that the slope of the total utility actually are decreasing, and this slope represent marginal utility. Therefore, the decreasing slope of total utility represent the marginal utility is decreasing. The one believe that we shall seldom used to consider the degree of utility except as a regard of the last increment which has been consumed or the next increment which is about to consume. In other words, mean individual decisions seldom take into consideration of the total utility, but the next or the last previous utility. So margin is, or what he mean is marginal utility. He used the expression final degree of utility as meaning that the degree of utility of the last addition or the next possible addition of a very small or infinitely small quantity to the existing stock. Coming back, water diamond paradox. Let's say we have to choose either A or B. Choose one. The first question, do you prefer to have all the water but no diamond? Or B, to have all the diamond but no water? So in this case, individual will most likely will choose A, because to have all the water but no diamond, because water is important. If you have all the diamond in the world but no water, then we cannot survive without water. For the question B, choose between A, to have another diamond but less one bottle of water. B, to have another bottle of water but less one diamond. For the second question, individual most likely choose A, to have another diamond but less one bottle of water, given assumption that they have some water and some diamond stock, right? So the choice of 2A actually imply that the extra satisfaction to have another diamond, right? The extra satisfaction from the diamond or the marginal utility for diamond for an additional diamond is much higher than the loss of one of many bottle of water. Therefore, notice from this experiment, right, is total utility of water is greater than the total utility of diamond. I mean, reflected in the answer of 1A or the choice of 1A. The final degree of utility or the marginal utility of diamond is far greater than the marginal utility of water, reflected in the answer of 2A. The value and therefore price of an additional diamond given abundant availability of water is much higher. Rational choice, right? Assume the price of two commodity X and Y is the same regardless of use. Because they are the same price, the consumer wishing to maximize utility will allocate money income in such a way that the marginal utility of the last dollar spent on all commodity is equal. In another word, the marginality utility for X divided by its price, right? The marginality utility per price is same as the marginal utility of Y per price of Y, and the same of marginal utility of others product, for example, N per its own price. If the ratio of marginal utility of X to its price is greater than for another commodity, for example, if let's say marginal utility of X per price of X is greater than marginal utility for Y or P of Y, then okay, here for example, consumer will purchase more of X and less of the other good. Because when you purchase more of X, remember the diminishing marginal utility. So marginal utility on X will decrease when more X is purchased. So you lower the marginal utility. And then while the less other good, so increase the marginal utility for the Y. So until the ratio of marginal utility with respective price of the good equalize, then the consumer total utility is maximized. So that is the rational equilibrium based on marginal utility. Theory of exchange. Assume two persons or the trading party of whom A has only good X and person B has only goods Y. For person A, the ratio of the marginal utility of good X to its price will be low because he has so many good X. Whereas the ratio of marginal utility of good Y to its price will be high because he don't have any or have extremely few, for example. In this case, we assume he has only good X and B has only good Y. Person will benefit by obtaining X and giving up Y exchanging for person B. Right? Person A will benefit by doing so, who also benefited until the point of which there are no further possibility of utility gain from the exchange, where marginal utility X per price of X is equal to marginality of Y per price of Y. Okay. So more specific example is trade will cease when the margin unit or unit of X, for example, beef, has as much utility as say 10 unit of Y, and the exchange for 10 unit of Y in the market. Because in this example, we assume both X and Y are same price. Okay. That is, if the price of unit of X and is 10 times greater than the price of unit of Y. So if it's not the same price, for example, $10 versus $1, each person will consume both goods up to the point where good X has 10 times marginal utility of good Y, because good X is 10 times more expensive than good Y. And for example, 100 versus 10. So 100 divided by 10 is equal to 10 divided by 1. So you see both marginal utility per price for X and Y are the same. 100 divided by 10 and 10 divided by 1. Or restated algebraically, exchange will cease when the ratio of marginal utility of the two goods are seen by each trading party match the ratio of the price. For example, I mentioned just now, 100 divided by 10 is equal to 10 divided by 1. Continue on value theory, but in this case, we focus on labor. The one held utility to be determinant of exchange value. For him, cost of production determines supply. Supply determines final degree of utility. Final degree of utility in this case refer to marginal utility. Final degree of utility determine value. Note that Ricardo believes cost of production directly determine value, but the one based on the one, the marginal utility directly determine value. The cost of production indirectly influence the marginal utility. The ones claim labor cannot be regulator of the value because labor itself has unequal value. It is differ infinitely in quality and efficiency. Right? So labor value must be determined by the value of the produce, not the value of the produce that by that of the labor. Right? So how is the value of the labor is what they can produce. It's not what they are producing. Right? Now, how to determine the labor value? Labor itself is a subjective psychological cost, painful exertion based on the one terms. The worker must compare the pain and of the work and the pleasure of the earning. So if referring to the graph, right, at the point M, the pressure gain from the earning associated with the last unit of work exactly equal to the pain of the labor endured, right? So marginal utility positive is equal to the marginal utility of negative. So the QM distance are exactly same length as the MD distance. So you get MUE equals to marginal disutility and W. So positive part and negative part is the same. So for example, if let's say you're at point C, right? Right? Of course, there are some time when you start, you enjoy your work. So marginal disutility, you are in the positive aspect. So let's say you're at point C. Point C, you have a dotted line. Marginal disutility is 0, but you also gain marginal utility positive, so therefore it's still a positive. Then until you reach a point M. If further of point M, you notice that the negative or the pain or the disutility is longer distance than the marginal utility. Therefore, labor will restrict their point, the equilibrium point to M. Another scholar on this marginalist school of thought is Karl Menger. Menger published his path-breaking thesis, Principle of Economics, in 1871. Later economists collectively known as the Austria School championed and expanded his principle. For example, there are Friedrich von Wieser, Eugene Ludwig Joseph Schumpeter, and Friedrich von Hayek. Two of Menger's more significant contributions were his theories of value and imputation. Value theory, or theory of value. Menger based his value theory on the concept of utility, but not based on the mathematics as used in Jevons. He used exposition of diminishing marginal utility and the balancing of marginal utilities. So here let's assume there are 10 commodities or there are 10 classes of commodities, 1 to 10. So food, let's assume is the first group, which is the most important, followed by the second category, third, 4, 5, 6, which is less and less important. The number in the table 13.1, marginal utility of each successive unit of respective good. Suppose that this person wished or have and wish to spend $10 and that all the unit of the commodity cost $1 per unit. All commodity cost $1 per unit for easy explanation. So how would the $10 be allocated? First, we explore about the equilibrium, right? As in Jevons, the equilibrium will be formed when you have marginal utility divided by the price of both items are the same. So based on this example, for example, a fifth unit of food which would afford the same satisfaction, in this case 6 marginal utility, as the first units of the tobacco, item number 5 also give you same 6 units of marginal utility, because we assume price for each unit are the same, which are $1. So for the fifth unit of food, the marginal utility divided by the price is 6 divided by 1. The marginal utility for tobacco, first unit of tobacco, is also 6 divided by 1, so they are the same. But is 5 food and 1 plus 1 tobacco actually maximize the utility? Answer is no, because the $10 budget still has balance, right? If all the price is $1, so 5 plus 1, it means $6, they still got balance of 4. So how? The answer is 4 unit of good 1, 3 unit of good 2, 2 unit of good 3, and 1 unit of good 4. Right? We assume group 1, the food is the most important. So when they consume up to the 4th unit, the 5th unit of food actually give this person a marginal utility of 6. which in this case is lower, right, than the others. So in this case, perhaps it's the best for this person to buy four unit of food, and then marginal utility per price is 7 divided by 1, right? Then 3 unit of second goods, which marginal utility for the third unit of second good is also 7 divided by 1. Then 2 unit of the third good, which is marginal utility per price is also 7 divided by 1. And 1 unit of the fourth goods, which is also marginal utility 7 divided by 1. And because of each item price is the same as 1, so total 4 unit, 3 unit, 2 unit, and 1 unit, you get 4, 7, 8, 9, 10. Total expenditure is also the entire $10 will be expended or will be spent, and the marginal utility per price ratio of each item will be 7 divided by 1. So in this case, this is the equilibrium based on Menger concept. Let's assume another example using back the same table 13.1. Suppose an individual could afford only 7 units of food. What would be the usefulness of the 7 units of food to this person? Both Zerwons and Menger will give you a different answer. For Zerwon, he would add the marginal utility of each unit from the first unit until the 7th unit. So you add 10, 9, 8, 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4. The answer will be 49. So if you are asked what would be the usefulness of the 7 unit of the food to this person, will be total utility equal to 79. But for Menger, the answer would be the marginal utility of the last unit times the number of unit. Mean the last unit is 4, the 7th unit 4 times 7 unit, so times 7, so 4 times 7 is 28. Why? Because according to Menger, all units are alike. Thus, each unit has the same utility as the marginal unit. That means if you have 7 units of food, all the first unit, second unit, third unit, fourth unit, fifth unit, sixth unit, and the 7th unit will give the same satisfaction or usefulness as the last unit, in this case, 4 utility. But for Zerwon, no, they give a different value of satisfaction. Okay? So if a person has only 1 unit of food per day, his or her state of near starvation would attribute higher utility to that unit. But if that person has 7 units, no single unit of food would give her or him more satisfaction than would be the marginal unit. Let's make it a more practical example. If you have 1 drumstick, then you will feel more satisfied or you more appreciate the drumstick. But if you have 7 drumstick, right? Then can you differentiate that? Okay, this one is give you high utility, the one to the left will give you a lower utility, the one to the most right will give you the lowest utility, the one in the middle will give you second highest utility. No, according to Menger, they are all the same. So if the last one will give you 4 marginal utility, so together total is 7 drumsticks. So you have 7 times 4 become 38, right? Therefore, Menger equate exchange value with total utility. We want to equate exchange value with marginal utility. Right? We go further on this one. Let's compare based on back on the same table 13.1, assuming food is like wheat, right? On this thing. Right? So, Zerwon on exchange value and Menger on exchange value. For Zerwon, 10 units of food have greater total utility than 5 units. Look back at here. If 10 units of food, your total for the one total from 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is equal to 55. Compared to 5 units, you have 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 and plus 6, which have equal to 40. Therefore, for the 10 unit of food, if you 55 total utility, higher total utility than 5 units, which give you 40. For Menger, 5 units of food offer more satisfaction for individual than the 10 units of food because the 5th unit of food will be marginal utility is 6. Therefore, 6 times 5 equal to 30 versus the 10 unit of food, the marginal utility is 1. 1 times 10 equal to 10. So 30 more than 10. So for mango, 5 unit of food offer more satisfaction than 10 unit of food. Could be, for example, if you are given, let's say, durian, 5 unit of durian, you may feel more satisfied than give you 200 unit of durian. You have to finish up, right? So this is some of the conceptual of mango. Further on, similarly, a large wheat crop or a large production of food offer more total utility than a small wheat crop or small amount of food produced, right? Even if the larger one sell for less money. In another word, mean the smaller one sell for more money. The smaller one sell for small money. This conclusion is still same on the mango side. Right? For example, a small wheat of crop may be more satisfying to consumer than a large one. Like you can see here, 5 units of food offer more satisfaction than for the individual than the 10 unit. So therefore, smaller ones sell for more money than the larger one. So both of them share a similar conclusion, but they arrive at a conclusion from a different conceptualization. Wenger believes that measure of value is entirely subjective, depending on the difference in the preference of individual and the amount of income available to each. Value has nothing to do with cost of production. If let's say cost of production for apple and orange, if assume is still the same, right? Then if I prefer orange or I like to eat orange and you like to eat apple, then I might give more value to orange that I like and you may give more value than apple which you like. So it different based on preference and based on income availability. Recently, they got a viral case, right, which a girl who appreciate a lot on a handbag which not really cost a lot, right? So the preference, the satisfaction, the utility for this lower income girls is higher, but for those extremely rich, will think that this handbag is nothing for them. They don't give a lot of preference. They don't give a lot of utility. So you see, different income give different satisfaction or different utility value on the same thing, right? So the value of individual attribute to a good is equal to the importance of the particular satisfaction that depend on his command of the good, right? There's no necessary or direct connection between the value of the good and the labor applied to its production. So there's same thing for some people, they may give high satisfaction, high value, appreciate the goods more, but for some, they may not appreciate the goods more, even though same labor applied. And some example given is quality of timber in the virgin forest and the labor to produce them. Regardless of how much labor you produce, the timber value is itself a value there, right? Regardless of the labor. And a diamond found accidentally or was obtained from a diamond pit employing labor is completely irrelevant for its value. So a diamond found on the roadside, you just pick it up, right? Exactly the same diamond, you use the labor to go and find it and incur a lot of project costs. Both diamond will give you also same value, right? Irrelevant of the cost of production, you just pick it up and it will cost you much effort. So the basic of exchange value, said Menger, is the difference in relative subjective valuation of the same good by the different individual. Next contribution of Menger is the theory of imputation. The concept of marginal and total utility refer to consumer one. So the consumer side more related to the demand. So therefore, the utility theory apply only to consumer good or services that govern the price of a high. So what govern the price of a higher order goods? For example, input or intermediate good used in production, such as machinery, raw material, land, and others. Because consumers do not directly consume raw material, consumers do not directly gain satisfaction from consuming directly a machine. Right? For Menger, in his theory of imputation, held that such good like input and intermediate good also use satisfaction to consumer through indirectly by helping to produce things that do satisfy consumer one directly. That means consumer get no satisfaction from a raw material, for example, a raw cement or bricks, but they have satisfaction from staying in a nice house, right? So the present value of a means of production is equal to the prospective value based on the marginal utility of the consumer good they will produce. For example, flour, right? They will, consumer will not want or some raw fruit. Consumer did not want to eat the raw fish, for example, right? But and the cooking gas and cooking utensil, but by combining all these input machineries and limited goods, they cook a very nice meal. So the prospective value of the consumer good they will produce, right, with two deduction. A marginal subtract for the value of service and of capital, which he called interest, and a reward for entrepreneurial activity, which is profit.